So let's see. This vehicle's got a whopping 203,000. Jesus. And looks like we have a P0128 coolant thermostat. So we're going to be changing out the thermostat on this. Back, folks. Today I got a 2015 Dodge Grand Caravan RT with the 3.6 VVT, and we are going to be changing a thermostat. So the thermostat is located right there, and that's the housing. There's our clamp for our hose. So in order to get to that, we got to pull some of this other stuff out of the way, like our air cleaner here, air filter housing. Looks like we got a 13 millimeter here for our power steering fluid. We're not going to take the hoses off, just going to unloosen it from here, kind of move it out the way. Yeah, goal here is to unbuckle this here. Looks like we need a straight blade screwdriver. This hose should just slide right off. We'll open up our clamps here, here, and there. And this piece should come right off of here, and then we'll undo this. So let me grab some weapons and I will be right back. Got this part loose here. Pull that out of there. Set that to the side. If you need an air filter, now is definitely time to change it. Man, that thing looks like it's been through hell. Let's see if they want to change it. More than likely not. And then we're going to pull out our lower part of our housing once we take this loose here. So I'm going to get that loose, and I'll come back when I'm pulling this out. So the next step is just to grab our air filter housing here, and there's a little rubber dowel right down there. We've got one right here. Excuse me. And what I tend to do is take a little penetrating lubricant, some WD-40, and spray down on there. It makes it come out just a little bit easier. I popped this one loose already. Let's see if I can pull this out of here with one hand. Uh-oh, forgot to disconnect that. All right, so we got a wiring loom attached there. So we're gonna have to get that loose. All right, I'm gonna pull that apart, and I'll come right back. So I got this wiring harness detached, and all it is a little plastic push clip, and that goes right into that little hole right there. So now that I've got that loose, this ought to hopefully get it straight out of here. All right, there we go. And there is our thermostat housing right there. That is what we are going to be taking loose. Light on there. All right, it looks like two 10s, two 10 millimeters. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and crack that bleeder screw. Doesn't want to come out. Bleeder screw open and let some of this coolant drain out. And once I get to that point, I'll come on back. So I got my coolant draining here. I just took off the little plug. Oh, it's a little bleed screw. And that's what this looks like. It's got a little O-ring on there, so don't lose that if you take it out. And we're just going to let that trickle on out of there until it stops, and then I'll take the two screws out of there, which I believe are 10 millimeters. Let's see. Yeah, that is a 10 millimeter. So we got one here, and there's another one down at the bottom somewhere. We'll find it once this stops draining. So before I take those screws out of that housing, what I decided to do was take my clamp off here. We're going to try and loosen up this hose around here before we actually take this thermostat housing out of here. Hopefully it'll come right loose. Yeah, looks like it will. All right, let's see if we can kind of guide this coolant down into our pan without making a mess. Just wiggle this off slowly. Come on, baby. Come on off of there. Because it's going to want to come gushing out of there once I pull this loose. All right, we adjust our pan a little bit. Let's see if we can move this out of our way. So a little more of that pour out of there. All right, just gonna kind of stick this hose out of the way if I can. Yeah, just shove it back here behind this windshield washer bottle. And let's see if we can get our 210s out of there. What I'm going to use is for this upper bolt, 3/8 drive 10 millimeter, like a 2-inch, 3-inch extension. That one came right loose. See if I can get to this bottom one. Too much extension here. See if I can do it without one. Oh, I need a little one, probably 1 inch. Let's try a deep 10 millimeter. There we go. And we're changing this because it has a code of P0128, if I'm not mistaken. Temperature is not up to par. Almost out of there. And this is what your bolt will look like. It actually has a Torx head in there, if you can see it. All right, so this should just come out of here. Here we go. That is what our thermostat looks like. Sometimes you'll find these blown apart where the spring is just completely separated from this piece right here. This one is still intact. It's just not functioning like it's supposed to. Doesn't look like it's closing all the way, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that looks a little funky. That does not look right in there. Oh well, we got our new one. So I'll be right back. All right, here's our new one from AutoZone. And if anyone is interested, this part number is 902-3036. And then we've got another number up top. Let's see. What's that? 90803DL. And it does come with a new O-ring right around the edge here. So what we're going to do is wipe our surface down here, make sure there's nothing on there, any kind of dirt or anything. Shouldn't be because there's no gasket, but we do want a clean surface for our new O-ring to sit level on. Yeah, that feels good. Doesn't feel like there's anything wrong with that. We will put our new one back in place. On. Get the bottom one in. Just gonna hand tighten these equally if we can. Keep in mind this is plastic. This is not a metal housing. So when you're tightening these down, there's no need to gorilla torque it. I don't know the exact torque value for these. Stuff like this I don't tend to torque. I know when too much is too much. I've been doing this long enough to know, do it by feel. I will use torque values when I'm doing stuff like head gaskets or something to that nature. But not on like this. It's good enough. Okay, next we're gonna put our hose back on here. Okay, and we'll get our clamp back in place. Might have to move this camera. Yeah, I'm gonna have to move this camera. Got my hose back in place. What I'm going to do now is loosen up our bleeder screw here. I won't take it all the way out, but I'll leave it in there loose. And I'm going to fill this antifreeze back up. We should see some bubbles coming out of there. Maybe hear some air. And what we're doing is letting the air out of here so it doesn't get trapped in the engine. There we go. There's our bubbles. And our antifreeze is starting to flow out of there. So I'm going to cap that off finger tight. I'm going to fill up the rest of the system. And once I've got this all filled up, I'll come back. Alright, so I've got my coolant filled back up here. There's still a little bit of air coming out of there. That will get sucked down once I start the engine back up. I've gotten all my air out of my thermostat housing here. So the only thing left is to put back my air filter housing, the air filter and the cover. And we'll buckle all that up. When I get to that point, I'll come on back and we'll start this thing up. This here. When you're putting in your air filter housing, you'll notice that there's one of the locator pins. You've got one grommet there, and there's actually another grommet underneath this intake tube. So you got three all together. If you look on the bottom of here, you'll see you've got the one grommet there, one of our pins, and the other pin there. So what I'm going to do is just back on in here, and we'll make sure that those pins line up. It's not something else holding this. I lost that tube. Got to make sure you get that air tube back in place. There we go. And we're just going to line up our pin right there in our grommet hole inside of there. There we go. I do believe all the rest of them are lined up. So just shove that down. That's it. We're going to stick our air filter back in. They've opted to not change that. And that was a good idea. Just put the old dirty one back in. Nothing wrong with that. And put the lid back on here. Easiest thing to do here with one hand. So I'm going to assemble all this and I'll come back once I've got everything together and we can start this thing up. Folks, I got it back running and I didn't put my power steering reservoir back in place yet because I wanted to make sure that all of the air was entirely out of the system. So I wanted to leave myself some access down to this screw down here. It looks like it is. I opened it up, got straight fluid out of there. And our temperature looks like it is pretty stable, climbing up slowly. And we're just going to monitor that for a couple of minutes and make sure it does what it's supposed to. And, we're going to send this one out the door. If this video helped you out any, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, share it, you know somebody who needs it. And I'll see you all on the next one.